Hello, welcome to episode 2. I'm Nick. I'm here and I'm joined by Mike Patterson, the president and owner of Intech Services. And we're also joined by Chris Dole, vice president of Intech Services. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Hello,
good morning,
Chris.
Guys. Good morning.
We obviously, the month is October, and I think culturally we're a little bit preoccupied in the month of October with things that go bump in the night, things that scare us, fear. So today we thought we would talk a little bit about fear's role in business. It's a genuine touchstone, I think. It's common ground for so many of us. Fear can paralyze us. Fear can also motivate us too, in the positive sense. And when it makes its way into important areas of our lives, like our jobs, our livelihoods, I think it's a nice opportunity to get behind the curtain a little bit and hear about some of your experiences, some of the things that I don't want to say they're fears for you, but things that are certainly concerns of a fearful future. I wanted to talk a little bit about the difficulty in management. Obviously, there's nothing easy about running a successful business. I think being in management involves so much more than simply sitting behind the big desk, correct? And taking on that kind of role comes with a number of added responsibilities, many of which people don't even consider until they get in that big desk, you know? And I thought this might be a good opportunity to get behind there and explore some of those consistent concerns that come along with proper management in your business in particular. So I wanted to start with this, a little bit about the allure of that big desk and a big seat. Really, to put it real simple, Mike, we'll begin with you. Somebody's worked their way up, served in many different roles, worn many different hats. Do you sleep better now or when you were working on sales deals?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. It's all relative, I think. You know, like, it's kind of funny. Like, if I think back to when I was just doing sales only, you know, I was fresh out of college and did that, you know, first thing. And like, I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is, and Chris knows this because Chris lived in this world right after me, is that when we started at Intech, when he first came in as a sales guy, part of your indoctrination was that you had to work in the warehouse. So in the mornings from 6 a.m. to whenever it got done, usually around 9.
And we were out there. Consistent rite of passage. Everybody goes through this.
The new guys have been shielded from this practice, unfortunately. But Chris Lord, I think Chris Lord was probably one of the last to really do the warehouse tour of duty. But so, you know, it's kind of funny. We go in there, you know, we're in our 20s. Chris and I would be out tearing up a Monday night football game and come in there Tuesday morning.
We had the Phillies World Series run when I was which led to some really tough mornings.
Yeah. But, you know, it's funny because when you're doing that job and then we would come in and we'd pick up our sales roles and start making dials and, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was fun. But all the time you're doing that, you're always thinking about what's the next thing, you know, how do I get more authority or responsibility, or how can I contribute more and all this and that. So you're always kind of like pushing yourself to grow and to expand what you're doing and climb the ladder, so to speak. And then you find yourself high up on the ladder and it's different set of challenges, different set of stresses, different set of, you know, responsibilities professionally. At the same time, your family's growing. And so now you have kid stuff you're dealing with. So it all kind of builds, right? And I can guarantee you my long answer to this one is, hell yeah, I'd rather just sell in many cases, because my life was so much simpler back then. And I know Chris is laughing because Chris and I have had this conversation before, like, holy shit, remember how easy that used to be?
Yeah. Just give me a list. Let me dial through it, build relationships and close deals, and just have to worry about myself and not the rest of everyone else.
It seems like a very welcome return, though, I guess, because now you're worrying about in-house responsibilities, day-to-day responsibilities with the team. Then you bring in customers, you bring in client concerns.
Right.
That's just, has that been how was that adjustment for you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, as Mike mentioned, when you were working your way up the ladder, all you really had to manage was yourself. And of course, everyone trusts themselves and is confident in what they can contribute and do. And as you work your way up, and now you have a team that you have to worry about, you have to let go. You have to let go of control. You have to become a teacher and a coach, and you really have to trust what they're doing, even when times are tough and customers are getting upset or shipments aren't going out or the product isn't performing. You still have to really make sure that the people that are working on your team are still kind of taking the forefront and taking care of that customer experience. And I think that's one of the scary things. That's what's difficult, is that sometimes things are out of your control, but being the manager or the quote unquote boss, you still have to make that call, and you still have to kind of make sure you number one, take care of the customer, but also support your team members too. And it's really a difficult part of moving up the ladder, as Mike said.
It
I
involves a
think,
lot of
I think one of the things that we've really tried to emphasize here for years is, Chris and I came up with this at an offsite many years ago with Tony, which was, you have to let go to grow. So the overall organization is going to be completely limited in overall growth if the three of us are holding things back, or if I'm holding it back, or Chris is holding it back. So, the best way for the company to grow is for us to find good people, put them in positions where they can grow individually, and then that lets collectively the organization grow. And that's kind of been our core, the kind of mantra internally in terms of just development of the individual leads to development of the company.
Yeah, and I think and Mike always kids me. He's like, I couldn't imagine being one of your children because I have the patience of zero. So, what Mike really helped me develop as a manager is, when something would go wrong, I'd be ready to just jump in and take it back over and just, try to fix it quickly. And I used to be called a bull in a china shop. So,
used to be called.
I try to soften it with words now, at least.
Yeah.
But as you go through that whole process of trying to mature as in your career and as a leader, it's really difficult to let people fail sometimes, and just try to make sure that they can continue to work through tough situations without just jumping in and like Mike said.
So yeah, I think it goes with, we have to acknowledge the fact that sometimes being a good leader involves knowing when to relinquish control and knowing when things are out of your control and how you respond to that. Speaking of which, things being out of our control, I don't know if people can hear it, but right outside where Chris is, they're actually paving the parking lot. So if it sounds like, the Incredible Hulk's out there wrecking shop, it's going to be like that for a little bit. We're doing the best that we can. But speaking of that, if you look, I'm looking at where you're sitting, Chris, and we're talking about relinquishing control. I noticed that the sales team is not there. The lights are off. And that's another, I think it's a scary thing. Both of you have had to put a great deal of trust in your teams, as they're not working under you every day. You don't have the ability to do the quick office pop in. You don't have allowing the business to go remote. Was that a scary thing? And you can start, Chris, and I'd love to hear your take, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was scary. I know, you're always worried about, how difficult it is to juggle your at-home responsibilities while also doing work. It's easy to hop up and fold the laundry, but when you reflect back on how much, water cooler talk and, just general things that you do in the office, I think overall, the hours add up and you can be very effective. And I think we've proven that. Hopefully Mike agrees that, we've proven that we've been able to be very effective remotely. I think the scary part that is really starting to register with, all of our relationships is that, I miss people. I miss, building rapport on a common basis. And, as Mike put in our core values of genuine relationship, that is something core that we're starting to lose. And I think it starts shallowing the relationship so that people are more critical or judgmental or quick to act or not trust. And I think that's the scary thing for me as we look at our relationships with our customers. We're not traveling and we're not out there, really building rapport. We're just a voice on the other side of the phone, helping them, conduct business in this difficult time. I'm not Chris Dole anymore. I'm just, the guy who they get Teflon from. So that's to me what's been the most scary part about this whole situation.
That's well said, Chris. And I think that whole changing face of business that we're going through now, that we've been dealing with for 6 months, was something that there's no playbook for. So we didn't know exactly how we were going to handle this. But as I'm looking at some potential changes in down the road and how that might impact Intech, that's where I am too. Is what's it going to mean for the relationships, and then beyond that, how's that going to impact the buying decisions that people are making? So we spend a lot of time having relationships and building relationships and going on the road to meet our customers, to meet end users, and to see how our coatings are used and see if we can develop better, longer lasting solutions. And if all that goes away, then my biggest concern is that, the buying decisions now is going to be driven entirely on price. And that's an equation that's tough for our materials to win, because we're hardly ever the cheapest solution out there. But I would argue that when you look at our package, we're going to be the best. Package being the coating solution, the performance the coating is going to deliver, our technical support, our product support, our ability for people to reach us at their convenience. So all those things together, we want to really package that and hope people value that. And if we can't provide a lot of those personal touch type scenarios and solutions, then my fear is that this turns into just a price buy and the cheapest guy wins. And that's scary to me. That's very, very scary.
That idea of your quality product is kind of leading me where I wanted to take it next, because when I was thinking I'm still very much learning about your business. And when I have to do my homework and do a little learning, I'm thinking of your particular product. And I think something that would concern me as an outsider, or it'd be a fear, so to speak. I'm going to go back into my past life when I used to teach English, and I used to teach rhetoric and the art of writing and speaking effectively. I used to have to teach Thomas Paine, The Crisis. And in The Crisis #1, he had this quote that I always remember. He wrote, "What's once done well is done forever." And it made me think of Teflon, because it seems to be a challenge. If your product is both exceptional and durable as hell, my fear, not knowing enough about the industry, would be, how do you manage growth when that's what your product's known for? So could you respond to that particular quote and how it relates to your trade, Chris?
I think I've spent a long time and on the oil and gas development work for Teflon, and I think where that quote really rings true is in the specification work that's required.
Yeah.
And as you talk about scary, the type of equipment that these coatings are going on is blowout preventers, heavy oil and gas machinery that has, unfortunately, we've seen caused some significant damage to the environment. So this isn't a light task to make sure that your coating is in compliance and is going to work in the environment, that they're seeing. So, what's the quote? What gets set done right.
What's once done well is done forever.
Yeah. So I think what's been a really good learning experience and how it relates to that quote is the intensive specification work that some of our industries require. A lot of data. There's a lot of engineering work that's done and testing to ensure that when a coating is specified in, it kind of is there forever, because it sometimes takes years for it to be an acceptable, coating and system in specific applications. So that really resonates from that standpoint.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense, Chris. And it's right in the experience base that you dealt directly with for so many years. And I'm going to take it back a little bit further even. I feel like the overall coding application itself and doing it right is the key to success for generations. And some of these specs that we're dealing with now are literally 70 years old. And it's the same coding technology that continues to provide performance and value, generations beat down the road. And so, Chris is, if you look at the spec that you've been working on, Chris, like you're in like the infancy stage of it, in terms of how long it's, our coding's been on that, but extend that out. And like, if the performance continues to deliver value and people continue to apply it in a way that it needs to be applied, that coding is going to continue to add value, down the road long term. And so that's kind of the really cool part of this, is seeing like the work Chris has done. I mean, this is his kids might be benefiting from that. That's so long. And that's the fun part. We run across, applications in every industry day in, day out. And some of these industries are new, some are not. But the cool part is finding a solution to these problems. And if it's a solution that's okay, well, maybe there's a solution that's better and that will last longer and deliver more value to whoever the end user is. So that's the real kind of detective work and that we love doing. And that's the fun part of the job. I mean, I love that part of it.
And I think what Mike's done at Intech is really stress how accessible we are from a technical and also customer service standpoint to ensure that the right solution is getting put on there. So although, you may worry that if we put a solution on that lasts 10 years, you don't build additional business, but you build the trust of that client and the end user so that you have that opportunity to then, get other opportunities to grow business in different areas. And I think that's one thing that Mike has always stressed about Intech Services is how well we know the products, how well we know the technology so that we put the correct application in the first time.
And it's something that we covered last time, I think. And so the great answer that both of you provide there is really, how do you grow when your product's built to last, so to speak? It's amazing what you provide beyond that product. And I said this when we were talking with Chris Lord last time, that I'm always amazed at how the growth that I see in your team, where somebody starts. I don't know how anyone learns what you guys pick up and what some of these guys pick up in just a few months' time. But there is so much added value to having someone pick up the damn phone. That you have your rule about that phone not going beyond that second ring. Those are the kind of things that resonate with people, and I think that makes the huge difference.
It's kind of funny. Here's a funny story with that, Nick. I was at a customer's once. This is just within the last couple of years. I was sitting in their conference room, and they had a question about a competitive product, and it was a technology that we have a similar product to. And so they asked me the question and I answered the question. But then I said, well, why didn't you ask, the competitor? And so he said, you know what, watch. And I will. And so the guy dips out of the conference room and his desk was like right there. So I could see where he was. So I see him on the phone. He's, he has his back to us. He's there and he comes back in the room. I'm like, so what'd they say? He's like, I don't know. I got voicemail. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was something that my dad and Kaz put into place like in day one of Intech when they started the company, was this 2-ring pickup rule and not going to voice system and voice prompt stuff. I mean, and we've kind of stuck old school with that, but I think it's something that in this day and age, even in an electronic world, people still value the fact that they can get a hold of us. And that's something I take a lot of pride in, and everyone does for that matter.
Oh, you should. You should. It's something you definitely hang your hat on, because I always think that when you get that voicemail sometimes, in particular when it's a peak hour, you're calling someplace that is staffed, there are people there. And sometimes when you get that voicemail, it's like, okay, somebody's avoiding this problem. They might not have the answer. And it means the world that even if you guys don't have the answers, you're there, you're going to get the answer. It's very admirable. I commend you on it.
Hey guys.
All right, to shift gears just in a minor sense, we're still staying on the thematic.
Is it a Teflon coated gear?
I gotta check. Yeah, it's good. We get them around here. I want to go into this. It goes without saying that every job that we're fortunate enough to take throughout our lives comes with its share of sordid, scary stories. Everybody has a horrible day on the job at some place. But I wanted to challenge you here and see. I want to start with Chris. What is your worst story, your worst experience while you're working the sales end, Chris? Can you recall one?
Yeah. I recall, getting on a 3-hour flight, walking into someone's conference room and getting yelled at and shown a letter from the legal department from then DuPont that had told them they could no longer use the Teflon term on their website. And I'm walking in to try to sell them more Teflon. Yeah, they were told they cannot use the terminology. And, that, as you guys know, Teflon's one of the most recognizable brands in the world. So rightfully so, DuPont and now Chemours is very good stewards of that brand, and there are criteria that are required. But the tough part is one hand not talking to, or I guess one, whatever that is, one hand not telling the other hand what was going on. So just walking in blind and being blindsided was probably the worst, in-person sales experience I ever had. Work through it though. We're doing business with them now.
Yeah, those are rough. I think a lot of us have had that blind side for that letter too.
Yeah,
that's a rough one.
It is.
How about you, Mike?
So this is it's kind of funny. I had an answer in mind, but then as Chris was talking about that, something else came to mind for me. So, in tech, like we talked about wearing a lot of different hats when we first were starting out and, a small company. So one of my duties, aside from the warehouse, was also to do accounts receivable too. So I would be the one that would at 30 days, because that was the rules, net 30. So I'd like fax people at 30 days, then call it 40 and this and that. And so we had a customer that was always kind of a chronic late payer. And then, and sometimes when that happens, they get put on hold and, this and that. So this is when I learned that a salesperson should never be in charge of accounts receivable.
And I would not do that anymore.
Yeah. I was on the West Coast. I was visiting the same customer. And, I was in the conference room waiting for, the owner to come in who I had the meeting scheduled with. And in comes the person who handles accounts receivable, who's also his wife. And or accounts payable, excuse me. And she just unloaded on me as far as just who do we think we are, and and this other stuff. And like literally it's like $200 too. It wasn't even like a lot of money. But it was like probably, and so then she left, and then here comes the owner, and I'm like rattled. I was like, 25 or something. I just got rocked by his wife, and I was shook. And so I had to try to like collect myself and, continue on with the meeting. But it was, that was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I think since then we've never had salespeople handling accounts receivables anymore. So,
lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Another thing you guys do, or you guys used to do, we're talking about a pre-COVID world. You have a reputation for continuing ed, training, and in particular, getting on the road and going out and educating. Now, as somebody that spent 13 years in education, I know that the first time out isn't exactly the smoothest time. When you do things like I3 and you get into the shows like that, how did you was getting your feet wet more of a traumatic experience than you first thought?
So for those of you that don't know, Chris and I are a lot alike in certain things. So we came up with the idea that, hey, let's start this training. We can bring customers in and we can do this Teflon training and all this and that. And we go and we publicize it, and we thought we'd get a handful of people, and like we had a decent crowd sign up. So then it was like, oh shit, now we actually have to do this, right? And so
we have to talk for a day and a half now.
Yeah. So we didn't have PowerPoints. We didn't have we wanted to have binders with materials and all this stuff. And so, we did it. Luckily we had a great staff because we threw a lot on them. Like I know we weren't real popular at the time around the office because there's a lot that went into it, but that was scary. That was definitely something that, looking back on it, it went off fine. But I think neither Chris nor I had a good understanding of everything that's involved that happens before the first person walks into the room of the first presentation. But it's gone off. I mean, we've done it every year since, with the exception of this year because of COVID, but it's been a great experience, and we've gotten better and more efficient at doing it. But man, we definitely bit off more than we could chew for that first one.
And then, Mike, it was scary because, you know, we're a month out and we have 2 people registered. And as Mike said, we got a great crowd, but, you know, just worrying that, you know, the 2 people that were going to show up were like, where is everyone? And as you said, we haven't dipped below 15 participants, I don't think, since that first time.
But you know, what's pretty crazy, Chris, is you think about everyone we've done since that. That was 2009 when we first did it. Everyone, it's always in the last like 30 days that everybody signs up. It's just like the human nature of waiting to, you know, and but you're right. I forgot that first one. We were like super nervous that this was we were going to look bad, and we did all this work, and so it is it's always nerve wracking, but that was funny.
And it even is, to, as you mentioned, to this day, when we put an event, we're still, hey, you had that little bit of nervousness, and you know, not that this is scary. If anything, it's the opposite. We're always amazed at how many people come back multiple times. So, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Nick, because that was Mike's, you know, brainchild, and it was an amazing thing that we created, and it's got to be really rewarding to him to see people not only coming once but multiple times to learn about Teflon and get to meet the Intech team.
It's a lot of fun. I miss not doing it this year. Last year was our 10-year anniversary, so we did Las Vegas, and that was our least. There was a lot of people there, but we lost more money on that because the bar tabs were higher, you know, and stuff like that. But everyone had a great time, and they walked away with a ton of knowledge. We build relationships. I mean, there's something we said. I mean, in this world where we do so much by phone, to be able to get people together and have, you know, spend time with them away from the office, and you know, learn about them personally and let them learn about us. That's the name of the game. And so we've had a lot of good times with that. You know, as you know, our sales team's on the relative, you know, younger side. They're a couple years in, but for them to be able to see, you know, us in action and see how we interact with customers and develop their own relationships. I mean, there's all these soft benefits that come along with it that make it such a great event for everyone involved. And you know, I really miss it this year. It's normally like this time of year, like right now is usually when we're doing it. Yeah. And so, So, well, next year for sure.
2020.
Now, 2020. We're going to hope that we get out there and we do it. It's going to be the 11th i3, the next one.
Yep.
Yeah.
With a gap year.
The gap year, and just thinking about it, the first one had the potential to turn into the fire festival of training workshops, but I commend you for pulling it off and putting all hands on deck, and probably people stapling things and putting binders together all over the damn place. If I'm rounding up things that concern or you or can cause some fear, maybe we can take some of that away. I wanted to ask you quickly, and we talked about it a little bit before. You both touched on it. Way to go. As far as framing that right, what fears do you have concerning the future of the business itself? Because we're dealing with a different world right now, and we don't know when we're going back, and no one left a pandemic manual for us to check, in particular in this industry. So is there something that is concerning you more than others right now?
I'll start with this one, Chris. You know, I touched on the landscape of making buying decisions. That's, I think, my primary fear. But I think the other fear I really have is just the impact that COVID is going to have on the workforce, specifically on corporate culture. You know, and if you really like think back a year or two ago, the big narrative then was on generation Z or whatever. I don't even remember what it was because it seems like it was so long ago, but it was like, how do you get these young people to want to work? None of them want to work. None of them want to call, this and that. And which is completely the opposite of the experience that we've had with that generation, I must say. But that was like the huge narrative with corporate culture. Now it's all about remote working and how can you manage and motivate and retain people when you have everybody working remote and don't have that connection where you're bringing everybody together for, you know, day in, day out. So to me, that's like the thing that kind of stirs around in the back of my head when I think about how is business going to be conducted in the future. I mean, anybody can get through 6 months, 8 months, 10 months or whatever. Like, but if we need to have a finish line almost of like when we can say, all right, this is when we can get everybody back together, get the band back together, and let's start jamming again. You know what I mean? Because there's certain things we miss. You know what I mean? Think about, Chris, like, just even stuff as simple as doing off-site, training stuff. I mean, that's like team building, but it's also effective as hell. Just the internal stuff we used to do on Fridays to have a cool down here and there, and different tournaments we used to do, or sports things or whatever it's going to be. Like those little things all add up. Oh, the crab feast.
Crabs on 4th of July is a tradition this company's had since its existence, that we had to take what you say is a gap year on, and you worry you're going to lose those traditions and that culture.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably where I am at, is kind of one of my second, and that's an internal kind of selfish one, but I think it faces every company out there. Sure. If you're not thinking about that, then your people are probably packing their bags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're talking about a gap year, to use your term. Something that would always, because of the world I came from with coaching and teaching, I'd kind of fear that the loss of that year as far as development for your young guys too. Because correct me if I'm wrong, about the time I started in my role, you had two young guys here who were two studs I think they got on the road and they had done their own workshop. And they'd been at I3 and presented. You got to be supremely proud of that. And then you're taking away the opportunity. It's just like to flex those muscles and work at being good at that. That's a tremendous loss in this particular year.
Yeah, I think the only other thing worth noting, Mike, is a lot of our customers, the applicators, they have to have everyone back in the workplace because they're making stuff. They're they're coding parts. They're providing essential things to the manufacturing environment, and at least we've had the luxury to be able to work remotely, because the fear of people catching corona, or God forbid someone giving it to their parents or whatnot, based off of what you need to be concerned about, is certainly even more scarier than I think the things that we've been fortunate enough to be able to put in place here at Intech.
And the things that you've been doing to maintain the culture the way that you can, we discussed them on the first episode with Chris. Again, you're to be commended for keeping up the cool downs and trying to do what you can remotely. Of course, it's not a proper substitute for the real thing, but having any sense of community is fantastic.
I will say
being
this:
able to do that.
Fantasy football is a major boost in the arm. So Chris, thanks again for putting that together. Well, some semblance of normalcy.
It is nice. Another fear I think that's worth bringing up is, the concerns of pricing pressures. As products and coatings go up in price, but even more importantly, logistics and transportation. The one fear that we are concerned about at Intech, as we look forward into the future, is, whether these solutions start outweighing the benefits as the costing model in general goes up. So, really making sure that we're being good stewards of total cost to our customers is something that I know Mike is very focused on, to make sure that these solutions can deliver the amazing value that they have in the marketplace. Because, we don't want people to start considering not-in-kind solutions because of the total cost of the package.
Yep. That's a great point, Chris. And I think, kind of to build on that, I think that's why we really try to emphasize best practice with spray equipment. So we're minimizing overspray, minimizing waste. Best practices with curing so that people can get it cured right the first time and not have to recoat. I mean, we get that coatings are expensive. I mean, they perform, they're meant to perform, and they do perform. But we've been. I mean, think about how many years we've been talking about this. Chris, as far as like, hey, let's make sure that we can. These don't get crazy prices, or else people are just going to go to other solutions, which doesn't help anybody. So, we really try to keep our eye on that and communicate that to the suppliers, in this case, Chemours, as much as we can. And it's a battle. I mean, because raw material prices go up around the world, transportation prices go up, taxes go, all these different, factors weigh into the cost of creating these products. And, it's just, unfortunately, it's, prices continue to rise just like they do for coffee and ice cream and everything else.
Yeah.
But, we really want to try to hold the pricing as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think Mike, with his vision of Coder One and aligning with some of the best, application tools in the market, has always tried to make sure that we are cautious and conscious of, what the total application cost is. And I think that's, if anyone is looking at, the conversation that Mike and Nick have had today, is continue to reach out, because we're trained technically to really try to help people save money with application. Having a better application can really, really affect people's bottom line. And, we feel like a lot of our customers really don't leverage us from that standpoint.
Yep. Good point. Well said.
Very well said. Very well said. Now, I do, we're wrapping up here. So I definitely want to thank both Mike and Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today, but we're not done. We have a couple really important topics of paramount importance. It's the way at least producer Frankie Fifth here.
Here we go.
And this one has to do with fear. So I'll throw it to you, Mike. You'll figure out why. I need you to know that renowned sports writer Peter King, who worked in Sports Illustrated for a number of years. I don't know if you saw this. He recently put out his pick for the Super Bowl this year. So I need you to tell me, your Baltimore Ravens are supposed to be in it, according to Mr. King. Now, are you fearful that the matchup on the other side he has is none other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Do you fear them, or is that just like, cocoon?
So I think my answer is, I have two answers to this question. Number one, after so far, I'm not fearing Tampa Bay thus far. But I think the biggest fear I have is whenever the sports writer picks your team, that not getting to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
When I saw that come out, I was like, oh no, this is not good. But hey, at least it's back, and it's just my whole goal for football every year is like just be competitive so that the December games mean something.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God.
That's all I'm hoping for. You see, I'm wearing purple today too, so I represent all the damn time.
There's a lot to be excited for if you're a Ravens fan.
Yeah.
My God, every time I watch that kid play quarterback. Dole, does Mr. Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, does he make it a whole season?
I'm not sure. I think so. I think
Really?
I think he's going to be distracted in Tampa Bay, obviously, or Tampa Bay. But I think he hangs on there so that he can make sure he leverages a wrestling contract after the season.
He needs a few more checks from Vince McMahon. Interesting. Interesting. Now,
Paid his bar tabs.
Yeah.
I want to go back in your Halloween culture. Let's say this. Let's say that it's young Chris Dole walking the streets on Halloween,
nice.
trying to fill that bag. Chris, let's be honest. Let's be transparent. You go up to the door. You don't even look at what they put in your bag, but you turn away from the door. They close it. You look in that bag, and it's the one candy that you're just going to throw back at that damn door. What is the worst candy to give out?
That's Mike and Ike's. That's an easy one. Mike and Ike's are the worst.
Ooh.
Mike and Ike's.
I thought you were going to ask something else, and Mike will get a kick out of this because I'm so process oriented. I had my Halloween route mapped out and discussed with my friends. Like
even
no
as a
one
kid?
else is. Oh man, like I was going to maximize how many houses when I had to get to the ones that were given the big candy part. I mean, that was happening at 8 years old, man. That's how I'm wired.
Oh, please. And then we probably had 8-year-old Mike. Like, did you guys see the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
You got to get on the spreadsheet to go to the other.
Oh man, that's funny.
Mike, did you have a plan? Did you follow a plan? You're a planner too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. Now I'm like
guy.
pressured. Yeah, I think I just kind of went freestyle.
Yeah.
But it definitely, the rumor of who had like the full size candy bar definitely influenced where you're going and what the route may be.
Yeah, that got on your spreadsheet for sure.
That used to be the secret. You'd be like, where are those houses near Rockford Park? Everybody go up there and see if we can trick or treat. All right, but look, I just want to thank Mike. I want to thank Chris Dole one more time for joining us today. We're going to be back in November with another episode for you. And please visit our website, visit intechservices.com, visit us on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. And we're going to see you next time from Delaware, Delaware. Thanks, guys.